First, let me say that it's actually an honor to be sitting here with you. Thank you. You know, we really didn't think we was going to be able to get this interview set in stone for today, so I'm really glad we was able to put it all together. Let's start off with something super simple. I want to ask you, how have you been? Yeah, I've been good. You know, I really can't complain. Nice, nice. I love to hear that. Let's go ahead and just jump right in, should we? Let's do it. Bet. So Felix, we're here to talk about your album. Let's start with the basics. What is the name of your album? I'm a little nervous to say because, you know, I actually haven't told anybody yet, but the album's gonna be called Man, Man, Man as of now. Oh, interesting. I decided to call it Man, Man, Man when I turned 18 back in 2023. And that's because, you know, all of my albums I'm usually talking about something that's happened already. You know, I'm telling the story of the last chapter of my life. And with this album, I really wanted to take a step back and write music about now, you know, where I am now as I become a man, instead of waiting and then reflecting on the time. I wanted to write about the time while I was still in it. I see. So when somebody hears that title of this album, what do you want them to think when they see Man, Man, Man? You know, honestly, I want them to listen to that album and determine that for themselves, you know? There's just so many ways to see that, you know. Sometimes you could think like, man, 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 like I really can't believe that happened. Or sometimes you like get something you want or do something you're really proud of and you're just like, man, 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 like I really did that, like, wow, like. So it's really, there's so many ways to interpret that phrase that I just wanted to explore them all on the album. And it really relies on what you as the listener see when you hear the album. And that really determines on what Man, Man, Man means to you. Oh, wow, that's beautiful. You know, I could have never said it like that, you know. Thank you. Thank you. Honestly, even if I had all the time in the world, you know, I could never articulate it quite like you did, you know. That's all you right there. That's all you right there. So now that we have an understanding of that, please tell me, because your team did send me the album before you got here today so I could listen to it. And I really can't put my finger on exactly what it is this album is. What do you mean? In terms of genre. Oh, I see what you mean. Honestly, this album, it took a lot of inspiration from Michael Jackson's Thriller. And the way that, at that time, nobody was bending genres the way he was. You know, he really innovated in a way where he took so many different genres and mixed them all into one album, which is what made the album stand out. And I think when I was making this album, I approached it with that mindset, you know, how can I be innovative and how can I push genres and how can I like take things a little bit further than where they go already. Okay. You know, while listening to the album, I noticed that it kept the same uniqueness that you could see across all Felix albums. My question is, how did you maintain exploring new sounds and ideas and concepts while staying true to the Felix that the people who listen to you already know and love? That's a great question. I think for the first couple of albums, I just was really focused on making something that nobody else could ever make, like something that could only come out of my mind. And for Somebody Toxic, I wanted to make it sound like a whole bunch of producers came together to make a Felix album. And while I love those albums, I think working on them with those mindset is ultimately what held them back. And so with this album, I just wanted to pour all of my skills and all my talent and all the little techniques I learned into every song. And so it really wasn't necessary. I wasn't holding back. I wasn't necessarily thinking, oh, like, how would this sound if this person did it? I really was just giving my all every day. And I think that, like, organically made this album fit in with the rest of my catalog while it stands out. You know, it's so different. But I think me just showing up being myself is what made it organically just like sound like a Felix album. Wow. I'm really gonna have to re-listen to it with that in mind. And I'm gonna have to fire whoever sent you the album, by the way. Like, apparently we're just sending it to anybody. I didn't mean to get anybody in trouble. I did it. So Felix, there are millions of people in America alone trying to make it to the level of success that you're aiming for. What makes you different? I think at the end of the day, what really separates me from other artists is the experience that comes with being in my community. I love music. I just want to entertain people and I want to connect people. And I do it purely for the love of the game. And I think when people see you doing something because you love it, it makes it easy for them to connect to the music because they know it comes from a real place. Like they know I'm not coming up here and pretending to be somebody I'm not. When they listen to the music, it comes from a real place in my heart. So I know that there is another human being that feels that. There's somebody in the world that feels exactly how I felt when I was making that song. And it's for them. How would you describe your music to someone who maybe hasn't heard of you? I would say, it's fun and intimate and complex and maybe a little cringy at times, but it's always like so genuine. I think I would say something like, he's a pop star, but he really explores with the other genres a lot, or like whatever it is, like he's definitely trying to prove something, What exactly are you trying to prove? I don't know really. I think it changes every album. But I think for this one, and maybe I could say as a whole, I think I really just want to prove that I'm good enough to be, taken seriously in this universe that we call music. So tell me, what does success look like for you? How would you know that you've reached your goal? Honestly, the bare minimum is like a Billboard award, or maybe a Grammy. Obviously the goal is to become Michael Jackson famous. So there would be a bunch of small accomplishments that would indicate like I'm on the right path. But right now I would say maybe success looks like just getting people excited for the album and, performing when I have the time. Do you have a favorite song to perform? It really changes often. Right now I would say it's Legacy and of course Somebody Toxic. I just love the energy in the room when I'm performing those songs. I think the way they are structured, I feel like it's just so easy to get the crowd to let their guard down and just enjoy the music. And as a performer, I'm only as comfortable as the crowd is. I completely get it, 100%. So Felix, you sit in front of me here having finished the album, and now your schedule's going from music mode to promo mode. So my question to you is, how do you manage the shift that goes into each of these mindsets? Honestly, it's enough to drive a man insane. Like half the time I think I'm just like alone in my room just talking to myself. Anyway, so what's next for Felix? If I'm lucky, I get to go around and I get to perform this music a bunch. I really love this album and I really want it to spread far, so I'm gonna dedicate some time to physically going around and spreading the word, letting people know like the album's coming, it's coming soon. And then maybe a couple of months after the album's released, I'll go back into the studio and I'll work on the next one. So we're getting to the end of our time together. But before we go, I do want to ask you one more question if that's okay with you. Of course. Great. You just spent the last 2 years of your life working on this album, and now you're finished. So how do you feel? It's a little bittersweet, if I'm being honest, because now I have to come up with a whole new concept for a whole nother album. And like, I've been working on this album for 2 years. A lot has changed then. Like, I've graduated high school. I got my first couple of jobs actually. And I guess the biggest change is that now I have my own apartment. I'm no longer living where I was 2 years ago. So I think like finishing this album really is the end of a storyline that I necessarily didn't know I was beginning until it was over. Wow. That's beautiful. It's almost poetic if you really think about it. But thank you for meeting us today. Thank you for having me. It was nice being here. It's really nice.